Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of All Things Real Estate. And as always, I am your host, Kyle Seyboth with Century 21, here located in Seekonk, Massachusetts, helping buyers, helping sellers, now owning a brokerage with over 60 agents. Super excited about that. Super excited about helping all our buyers and sellers through the fall market into the winter. But most importantly today, we have a special guest, as we do every week. We have a fellow real estate agent in my brokerage, and I would like her to introduce herself. Have at it.
Hi, I'm Sophia Melisaratos, real estate agent, and excited to be here today. So thank you so much.
Awesome. And the reason why, guys, that I did not introduce her is because there was 0% chance I would have got your last name right. So I said, let her introduce herself and go from there. I'm having you on the show for a specific reason. You're probably one of the only people, maybe there's like 2 or 3 in our organization, that I can say that I've helped with the purchase of a property, and now you've transitioned into being a real estate professional, correct?
Mm-hmm, right.
So you bought a property with me, what, a couple years ago?
Yep.
Bought a property a couple years ago in, where was it? Do you remember?
East Providence.
In East Providence, right? So you bought a property in East Providence, and at that time you were not in real estate.
I wasn't in real estate at the time.
You were not. What did you do at the time?
I was actually working for a health insurance company, so in account management.
Good. So account management, health service, you buy a property. What triggered you? What was like, hey, I want to do this? Like, was it then? Was it before then? Was it after that? Like, how did you manifest from that into this, and then how did you come back to me?
So, great question. I think when I first found the property, we didn't have an agent, and so I found you as the listing agent, and I was like, I'm just gonna call and see what happens. You were so quick to respond to my inquiry about seeing the house. I was so impressed from the beginning. So, you know, an hour later, we went and saw the house. And I think the whole process just made me so much more interested in becoming an agent. I knew from the time I was a little girl when I was playing Monopoly with my friends or with my family, and you know, I didn't want just the houses, I wanted the hotels.
Yeah.
And always, you know, interested in just the real estate. I grew up in a deep-rooted Greek community, and so they always instilled business in us. And I have my degree in business management, so I've always been surrounded by business and wanting to own my own business and, you know, just really intrigued by real estate. I think when we met and the whole process of buying the home just inspired me so much more, and I was like, yes, I could do this. And, you know, you were just so fast to respond through text, and, you know, everything's so innovative now, you know, everything's electronic and it's not like it used to be. So I think that inspired me to be able to say, okay, I think I can juggle, you know, real estate with my life. And
so it's funny because there's a couple parallels from kind of what you did to what, that's why I'm intrigued, because it's almost the same path I took. So I have my MBA. I got into the business because I bought a property and I was intrigued by how the process went, excuse me, and the agent. And I was like, okay, you know, I'm watching what the other agent's doing, and I'm like, I think I can do this, right? I like to work with people. I enjoy real estate. I understand it. I think it's interesting, and I want to, you talk about Monopoly, my goal is to have real world Monopoly, right?
Yeah.
To basically play Monopoly in the real world,
Yep.
right? And I think that's the American dream at the end of the day, right? So people definitely want to buy a single family home, and I think we often forget that purchase for that person, that buyer, the biggest thing they're ever going to do.
Yeah.
That's a lot of people's biggest purchases they'll ever make.
Huge.
So at the end of the day, it's important that we treat it that delicately. And my goal when I worked with you was to treat that purchase, no matter what price range it was, as important as anything else that I was doing in that day. So I think that's important.
Yeah.
And I think at the end of the day, now that you've seen the other side of it, you probably will start to appreciate it a little more.
Absolutely.
Right? So I think when you're a buyer, you say, oh, the agent's doing this or just doing that. As you start to do more and more transactions, there's a lot more into it, right? So there's so much more than just going out there, signing a contract, and calling it a day.
Right.
There's so many more steps. There's so many more things that can go wrong. There's so many more ways we have to protect a buyer. With that being said, what advice would you give to, we'll start with buyers. If I'm a first-time buyer in a market like we're in right now in 2020, what advice would you give to a buyer?
Right now, I think that, it's a buyer's market, right? There's
Seller's market.
It's a seller's market right now. And I think right now finding the home that you want at a good price is possible. I think working with an agent that you feel comfortable with. And I think what I want to say is when we worked together, no matter how busy you were, you treated us like we were, your only clients. And I think having that relationship with your real estate agent is so important. Having them make you feel like, this is their first home, it's special to them. And I understand that part because, I bought a home and it was special for me to buy my first time home. So I think this is the perfect time to buy right now.
Yeah, so I would say on top of that, right, so it's definitely a seller's market. There's definitely not a ton of inventory. And I think the reason why it is a perfect time to buy outside of the fact that there's a lot of competition and when you go look at a house, there's a million people there or whatever, the rates are so low and the affordability so high that people can now afford a much better house than they could 3-4 years ago. So right now, a lot of my buyers who were previously approved for like 200, 225, they now can go to 300. So the good news is they can afford more house. The bad news is so can everyone else. So you're fighting in this pool of buyers that continues to grow day by day and continues to be this kind of fight and combative situation. But to find the right house at the right price is a beautiful thing. And I think that's important that people understand that there's still a possibility for that. And even though we're in a seller's market, even though there's not a lot of inventory, if you're patient enough and you search and you turn over rocks and stones and figure out what's going on, you can definitely get there. So obviously now being with the brand, being with Century 21, you've started to do some stuff with buyers, you're working with some sellers, you're working with some investors that have rental properties, you're helping them rent properties out. Yeah. And one of the things I told you, and hopefully, what was one of the things I told you, right? When you deal with a rental and you meet with a potential tenant on a higher end rental, what would be one of the things that you might want to communicate to that renter?
I would say conversion, right? We want to convert them into hopefully buying that unit or condo or whatever it is that they want. I think paying rent, right, is at the end of the day, everybody wants to own their own home. And so I think just, having those renters and putting in their mind from the very beginning, hey, you could own this potentially with the same amount that you're paying in rent, that could be your mortgage payment. So I think having that just seed planted in the beginning of converting them into a buyer.
So I think that's super important. I think there's so many people that rent right now that don't understand the value of owning, right? So number one, when I'm a tenant, I'm paying for example, one of our owners, our investors, they're going to pay his mortgage. Yeah. Number two, I can't write it off of my taxes. Number three, for that same 16, 17, 1800, I don't just get one floor of a 3-family. I can get the whole house of a single family, or I can get the whole condo, or I can get a whole 2-family or a 3-family or whatever. So it's important that people understand and they're able to put things in a relative standpoint, right? So at the end of the day, $1,700 on a rental is relative to buying a property at $250K. So why are we renting? Right? What's our rationale? What's our mindset for renting? And I think as you meet more in these tenants, as you continue to do some of those rentals, I think it's important for you to understand the mindset of the tenant and understand how you can convert those people and really turn them into buyers that are looking to better their lives, to better their situation, to build equity. As far as being a relatively, not a new agent, but being a relatively newer agent in the game last few years, I think it's important that you, as an agent, right, continue to educate the community. And I think demographically, right, what type of buyer or seller do you like to work with the most? What would you say would be your ideal client?
You know, I would say probably first-time buyers. I like them all, and the reason is because, you know, I like the variety, right? So I love working with people that want to buy their first business. You know, the American dream is to buy, you know, a business of their own or to buy a home for the first time. And I love helping people find their first home or find their first business. What I wanted to add to the rental part is I think people are so scared or think that, oh, I could never buy a home. You know, I think they have that mentality of it's not possible. But in fact, you know, if I could do it, I think anybody could really, you know, buy a home. It is possible.
Right, whether you're single, married, younger, older, whatever that situation looks like, right? A lot of folks we don't know what people have going on in their personal lives, right? Everyone has a different story. Everyone has something different going on. No one is perfect.
Right.
I think we can all agree to that.
Yeah.
But what we can do as real estate professionals is educate the public. And we can educate the public on different things that help them be more comfortable. And if we allow them to be more comfortable, then they would entrust in us to help them actually make this purchase or make this ownership a reality. And I think at the end of the day, that's really what it comes down to. And I genuinely care about all my clients. Even doing this 9, 10 years already, closing however many deals it was, the deal today is just as important as my first deal. Because you're only as good as your last transaction. You're only as good, your client, right? We want to make sure that client understands everything. We want to make sure the client has a good experience, and we want to make sure they get a property that they really want. Yeah. And I think it's a really, really tough task to do when we start to get quote unquote busy, because we have to kind of refresh ourselves and remind ourselves that this is, you know, as much as we'd love to look at it as a transaction, it's somebody's livelihood. Yeah. This is how someone's going to get by. And I think the question I asked you, I'm going to ask myself, was what type of buyer or seller do I like the best? I loved your answer. You started out saying first-time buyers, and you ended by saying, I like them all. Yeah. Because that's how I believe. I like them all. White, black, Spanish, whatever. Does not matter. Yeah. Old, young, single, married, divorced. I don't care. At the end of the day, everyone deserves an opportunity. Yeah. Everyone deserves a chance. Everyone deserves an opportunity. So I thought that was a fantastic answer, especially for a newer agent in the last few years to know that and have the wherewithal with that. I think that's awesome. So I think hopefully we've added some value to the listeners as far as first-time buyers. One little tidbit I'd add there is that a lot of people don't understand that first-time buyers technically don't need any money down for a down payment. They also can buy with as little as 3.5% down if they're not using either Mass or Rhode Island housing. And if they're buying an investment property, 2 units or below in Rhode Island, they can buy with no money down at all. Yeah. So someone could actually buy a 2-unit property with little to no money down. And I think that's something that's very educational for our client base and our listeners and the consumers out there to truly understand how serious that is. Yeah. And that's not a gimmick, that's not a program that's here. That thing's there all the time. So with that, I think you've done a fantastic job. We really appreciate you a part of the brokerage. We're hoping to help you grow and to get to the goals that you're looking to do. At the end of the day, I thank you so much for being on. Anything else, last comments to the listeners? It
was such a pleasure to be here today and be on the team. You guys have such a, you know, Century 21 has a culture, and you've built this brand that's so amazing, and it's so refreshing to be part of, and I'm so honored to be part of the team. So I think, thank you, and yeah, for everybody listening.
Awesome, guys. So with that, we are exiting another episode of All Things Real Estate. Hopefully everyone has a great week. We'll get this out there and post it for everyone relatively soon. Thank you.